Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Thursday morning here. Study of the Srimad Bhagavatam every day. Every day. It's like a daily vitamin. It's like a superfood. I did that interview yesterday on the
Drew Stone, New York Hardcore Chronicles.
New York Hardcore Chronicles. You know, I was not looking forward to it just because I was like, we're going to talk about hardcore the whole time. It was actually a wonderful trip down memory lane, and it brought out some other colorful parts of the book that I didn't elaborate on. So it was actually a pretty fun interview. A lot of cool questions. Henry listened to the whole thing. Henry was there live listening.
No, I woke up in the middle of the night over here. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, you just can't, I'm not going to fall asleep. But I flipped it on, and there you were.
You're like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, waking up at 1 a.m.
and listening to the New York Hardcore Chronicles.
And listening to...
That's the only difference. That's how we use the time. No, it was good. It was a good interview. I could tell he was really digging you. He liked your book. And he was very respectful to your spiritual side.
Yeah. We didn't really talk about spiritual side that much, I don't think, but
no, but he read the book and he asked questions around it. It was there, at least from what I saw.
Oh yeah, it was nice. I got the yawnies today. What's going on with you?
We got tomorrow is big day. Tomorrow's the Gita Jayanti.
Who's Gita Jayanti? Gita Jayanti. Yeah. We should do something, Mara, for Gita Jayanti. Besides having a going away, we're having a bunch of 9-year-olds over the house. That's what we're doing for Gita Jayanti.
Read Gita to them all. Sit them all down.
Okay, kids. This is what we're doing for Tarun's going away party.
This is called a shloka.
Let's all just like Dharma Kshetra Kuru Kshetra. I want to go home. You didn't tell me it was that type of party where we study shlokas.
But every year for Gita Jayanti, which is the Advent, it was the day that the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on.
Yes.
We've been involved. Vaisheshika Prabhu kind of heads up this global effort to distribute like millions of Bhagavad Gitas all over the world, and we can all chip in and donate a case that can be sent here or there, someplace else. So I'm going to try to get him on the show tomorrow for a bit, and maybe we can. But either way, let's discuss Gita tomorrow. A favorite verse. Yeah. We'll figure it out. All right.
Do some favorite verses or something. How about that?
Yeah.
Favorite verses from the Gita. Let's just get everybody how about this one? Gita Jayanti. Get everyone who has the Gita to read the Gita. How about that? Let's do that. Let's make that like a pointed effort.
Maybe
let's get everybody to read the Gita tomorrow.
Everybody.
Yeah, we should do something Gita oriented. I want to do a Sweet Baby Krishna tonight, by the way. So if you're a Patreon member, yeah. So if you're a Patreon member, first of all, I want to say thank you because that's how this show exists. If you don't know what that is, that's when people give some monthly contribution. It could be anything. It could be the price of a oat milk latte once a month. And that could be your contribution to your tithing, as they call it,
Okay.
to keep this message of the Bhagavatam going. But anyway, and if you are a Patreon member, tonight we will do a special Sweet Baby Krishna class reading. What time, Mara? What time is good today? 7:30?
Yeah.
7:30. 7:30 tonight. If you're interested in joining Patreon, patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And we have one space just opened up for our 300 hour in India. Interested?
Oh,
Let
wow.
us know. Write me at, just, you'll figure it out. Right, Mara. supersoultrainings@gmail.com. If you're interested in doing yoga for a month, hanging out with me. Kostuba's part of it, of course. Bobby Marchand and Cindy Lunsford. We got a great team.
Great.
We got
That is a
really
great team.
refined team. And
That-
His Holiness Radha Swami is going to be there all month
Now we're talking.
practically. Very
Now
excited.
check this out, Rogan. Check out the chat board. I just shared something right there.
Yay, Sweet Baby Krishna. Sweet Baby Krishna. Sweet Baby
No,
Krishna.
I'm sending
yes.
something. It's coming right now. It's just a big. There we go.
Okay.
See it?
Ooh, the path of the Gita. What is this?
That's what I'm thinking of offering to our subscribers next year. Get that started. I think it'll be about every week, like a half-hour podcast, just working our way through the Gita.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice.
I'm going to do a Sweet Baby Krishna. It's not like a podcast. It's like a mini downloadable like series.
That's a podcast. That's a podcast.
I don't want to call it a podcast.
No, why not?
It's like sort of a perk cast. It's a perk for being a member of the
Yeah, it's okay.
Community.
Perkcast. If you want to call it
perk
that.
cast. But yeah, it's something just to give back for all the people that are given. We want to
You
make
like that?
this free, basically. The podcast is free. But if you want to contribute, then we try to make a perk cast for you.
Perkcast.
All right. So Miss Mara, announcements before we dive into the sweet honey nectar pot.
Yeah, we have Back to Recovery group meetings today at noon and 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And tomorrow is Cult of Cain, Josh Kane's asana class for our Patreon members at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow.
People love them. It probably never said the word nectar before I became a devotee. Now I say nectar like 3 times a day. Got any nectar? Any nectar in the fridge?
Nectar.
It's one of those devotee words, isn't it?
Yeah. Someone doesn't
Nectar.
like it. Who just threw up the thumbs down? Who? I don't understand how anyone can control our screen like this. Yeah. Someone just sent a thumbs down.
I need some nectar right now. Okay.
All right. Well, we got a nugget
ne-
anyway.
Oh, we got a nugget. This little nectar nugget is from your friend and mine, Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Yeah, this was a
All
letter
right.
to.
Let's see what Einstein has to say over here.
Okay, Einstein.
All right, Einstein. People say
Um,
that, right?
Einstein. This was a letter he was writing to someone named Robert Marcus, who was incredibly distraught after his young son died
Of
um,
polio.
Yeah.
And I thought that's interesting because we're reading a story about someone who was distraught
Yeah.
because his son
Yeah.
had died.
Exactly.
Now let's see if there's any connections.
Here's what he says: a human being is spatially and temporarily limited piece of the whole that we call the universe. Right? So a human being is a spatially and temporarily limited piece of the whole, what we call the universe. He experiences himself and his feelings as separate from the rest, an optical illusion of his consciousness. The quest for liberation from this bondage or illusion is the only object of true religion. Not nurturing the illusion, but only overcoming it gives us the attainable measure of inner peace.
Hmm.
Did Albert Einstein live in the ashram? How does he know this stuff?
Well, he
This is-
definitely had all of those scientists that were working together at that time. And there's a whole crew, and they definitely had an interest in Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita.
I mean, this is like
Oppenheimer.
this is something you'd hear in a Bhagavatam class or living in some ashram in India.
A human being is a spatially and temporarily limited piece of the whole,
Time and
what we
space.
call the universe, quotation marks. He experiences himself and his feelings as separate from the rest, an optical illusion of his consciousness. The quest for liberation from his bondage or illusion is the only object of true religion. Not nurturing the illusion, right?
Yeah.
We nurture the illusion. Not nurturing the illusion, but only overcoming it gives us the attainable measure of inner peace.
Yeah,
Now,
like
that may
normally
not be the most comforting thing for a person who's grieving, or it may be the most comforting thing. I think it's more comforting to someone like me who the children are not sick or dying, something like that. And they're like, yeah, that can make sense. And then maybe 3 years later, or 5 years later, or 20 years later, or 40 years later, when something happens, I'm like, well, remember that valuable piece of information? It may not be the most comforting information at the moment.
yeah, that everything's connected. I think that's comforting.
I don't know. I think I'd be like, shut up.
I don't know. But, I think we tend to go off on our mission, seeing ourselves as separate. And from that paradigm, it's from that paradigm that we operate, that we begin our decision making. We make it within that paradigm, right? I'm a separate piece, and I got to make sure I get what I need and get what I want, and then I'll find
Right.
success, and then I'll find peace. And Einstein, with his scientific outlook, he's recognizing somehow that everything's tied together. And it's only through realizing that do we begin to see truth, and it's only through truth do we find peace. This goes right to, I mean, it's interesting. Here's Einstein. I don't know how he got there, right?
I mean, imagine all these guys are like raised, Jewish or Christian in these Abrahamic traditions, and all of a sudden they get a glimpse of the Upanishads. They find some old text somebody translated, like, wow, look what these Hindus
and they
believe
did.
in. Yeah,
they did.
Look what these Hindus believe in. This makes sense. This makes a bigger sense.
This clicks with our scientific research.
Yeah.
And but when if you were to say, where do we see this being discussed? In one sense, it's all over the place, but of course, within Bhagavatam that we're reading, early on, we got this conversation that's going on between Vishnu, right, who is that being that ties everything. He is that central piece, right? That's like the hub, the root. He is that nourishing piece. He is that piece that holds all the other pieces together. And he's speaking to Lord Brahma, the being that he's empowered with the intelligence and the ability to create the universe. And there are 4 verses in the Bhagavatam called the Chatushloki, the 4 verses that summarize the entire teachings of the Bhagavatam.
You want to read the Bhagavatam? Just read those 4, then you're done. This podcast is finished.
But this verse is in relation to that. Vishnu says to Brahma, "O Brahma, whatever appears to be of value, of any value, if it is without relation to me," in other words, if you see it without relation to me, it has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in the darkness. Okay, so our illusion is not necessarily, what we see in this world is not an illusion, but when we see it disconnected from the central, from the hub, from the root,
right,
then we're an illusion. Right? And we're so prone to seeing it that way because we want to exploit it for our own enjoyment, thinking that that will bring us happiness or that will bring us peace. What Einstein is recognizing is no, actually that doesn't bring peace. It's only in understanding this truth, right? The leaf might be thinking, if I can just break free from the tree, I'll be free. I can get whatever I want. No. You'll find peace when you realize your nature as intrinsically connected to the root. It's the root that nourishes you, right? You with me, Raghunath?
I'm totally with you. I'm
Okay.
also trying to imagine what if he did live in an ashram. Back to Albert. Enough philosophizing. Clean up after the Sunday feast.
Now, would you like to hear a bit of the commentary to that verse?
Yeah,
Are you sure?
I'm eager. I'm on the edge of my seat right now, Prabhu.
Okay. Prabhupada writes, in the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, in its appearance, in its sustenance, its growth, its interactions with different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, right? The whole cycle from creation to destruction.
Mm.
All of it has basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead, right? He's there carrying, holding it by the hand, he's the one there that's moving it through all the different facets, all the different aspects of its cycle through creation and destruction.
Mm.
All has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there's forgetfulness of this prime relation, right? They may have I may be interacting with you. You and I may have a relation, Raghunath, but our prime relation is with that center of existence. Just like leaves may have a relation,
Right.
but their prime relation is with the root. So, again, as such, whenever there's forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related with the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord.
Mm.
Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also the energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relation with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, the energy of union.
Mm.
Interesting, right? The energy that's centripetal force that moves me towards the center. Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about, we had Jiva G come in. We talked about, holidays are coming up and there's some pain that people suffer with some family of origin issues, or they grew up in a dysfunctional or traumatic family experience. And now we're supposed to go home for the holidays. And how does that relate? I'm going to resurrect some same dynamic that I had 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago. And I was thinking, everybody who has a family, right, or is connected with a family, or has children, and it's like they need to hear this stuff. They need to hear that the primary relationship with the kids, with your brothers and sisters and your siblings, with your aunts and uncles, with your parents, is spiritual. So even though we get caught up in this is my family, these are my people, this is how we reacted for years, this is how we interacted for years, there is one primary, the main relationship I have with them, and that's a spiritual relationship. And I have to sort of uncover it, and I have to sort of create a bond somehow with them in a spiritual way. And I should understand that if that doesn't exist, the bond is really that it's just that temporary. It's that temporary. It's futile in a lot of ways. I'll be trying to it's sentimental, and it won't really be lasting. And of course, it'll cause me great pain and suffering, and there'll be some fun there as well. But we want substantial relationships with all these, and then it will also shed light on any pain I've been going through in these relationships, especially when it relates to the holidays. This is actually, for me, to hear this type of stuff is super important as a dad, because holidays do bring up things like that as well. And I just think it's extra. I can't say ammunition, but it's extra information to bring into the holiday season.
To share with your family, or to just understand
no,
within
to
yourself?
fortify myself going into
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
we're going into.
Yeah. Well, we
sometimes
want
I
to.
choose not to. Sometimes I choose not to go deeper, because you got to keep certain people aren't ready to
In your
go deeper.
conversations.
You just keep it on a surface, and you realize, I'm just doing some duties here of the material world to keep some relative peace. And then sometimes people are looking for that, and you want to go deeper with with some spiritual connection with the person, or sometimes they haven't been ripe for that for years, and then something happens, something shifts, and they're ready to like they're inquisitive. They want to know something. What do you think about this? I'm going through this, and things become ripe as if on a cloudy day, all of a sudden one day the sun just comes out. And so be ready for that too. Sometimes people are really ready to go deeper into a relationship.
You
Otherwise,
just move right into
relationships,
action right then,
right?
Raghunath. You
Other,
you
right?
jump all over that.
I jump all over that. But otherwise, for me, I find like these relationships can be very, very superficial, just pleasantries. And then I never push. I never push. But if people get to that point, then I push. Then I push hard
Mhm.
because that's the opening, and that's where you can actually develop. And that's why sometimes even in bhakti, we have much deeper relationships. You know, like my relationship with you, my relationship with like Henry or Mara,
Than
or,
the
some of you
family
guys,
relationship.
some of you guys, it's like they're deeper than a lot of my family relationships. My kids are more related to you and Henry and Mara than they are to like their uncles and aunts.
Mhm.
Because there's some
Oh.
depth there.
All right. Very nice. This, in one sense, this is where the bhakti yogi wants to be. They recognize there's two energies that can be flowing through me, flowing through my awareness. My awareness can be surcharged with the energy of union, right? The energy that when I look through my eyes, I see everything is connected to that root. I see everything is connected to that hub. There's
Mm.
something holding everything together. There's something that's nourishing everything. Or if I so desire, in one sense, if I just let go and let it carry me, I could be under the influence of the Mahamaya, the deluding energy, which when my consciousness is surcharged with that energy, I'm seeing separation. I'm seeing difference everywhere I look. I'm seeing nothing is connected with that root. Everything is its own individual separate piece that has no intrinsic connection. And he's saying, what Einstein is saying is, in that state of mind, there's no peace. And what religion is meant for is to help us see always the connection, right? And if we have that, he says, it's only then that we have an attainable measure of peace. And one thing I liked about what we're reading right now is Chitraketu. He had no peace because when he looked at his son, he didn't think, look, my beautiful son, he's got a connection to the root of all existence, as do I, right? Rather, he was thinking, I'm his root, right? I'm his root. And so when he lost his son, he was just crushed by it. But then, if you want to call this true religion or true dharma, he was given instruction by the sages. He was given instruction by his son that helped him see how everything's connected, right? That energy of union, they kind of like, it's almost like the sages had an electric charge running through them. They held him by the hand and he began to see as they did. And it gave him that peace. It gave him that peace. He was literally rolling on the ground, crying and moaning. And then he came to, like, he let go of everything. But not only that, and this is where the Bhagavatam takes us beyond like conventional Vedanta and takes us to that very confidential side of spirituality, that confidential Vedanta, where Narada said, let me give you these mantras that deal with understanding Lord Vishnu, who's behind everything. Meditate on this. Now that you've found peace, meditate, plant this seed, right, in your peaceful mind, and watch what sprouts. It might not sprout in a mind that had no peace, but now your mind is fertile, your heart is fertile. You're no longer attached, you're no longer distracted. You can become absorbed in these mantras in their meaning. And then watch what sprouts. And what sprouted was the manifestation of Sattvika Bhavas, right? He saw Lord Vishnu and he began his consciousness and even his body became surcharged and overwhelmed with ecstasy, physical ecstasies, involuntary ecstasies. You know, his hair standing on end, his voice choking up, tears pouring. He's feeling this is his true nature that's underneath it all. You know, came out fully blossomed. You know, fully sprouted. So any case, we're going to read more about this idea in the verses that he speaks to Lord Vishnu. Is he speaking now, or is Vishnu speaking now? I think he's speaking, right?
I think he's speaking, and
Yeah, he's speaking.
it's continuing on with.
Let's continue on.
Is just seeing Lord Vishnu and what's just coming out of his mouth. This is Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadhirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and the Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16, Text 47, Lord Maharaj Chitraketu speaking. My dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation. But persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness
There you go.
do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence.
It's separate, right?
My Lord, you are the supreme pure, and you are full in all 6 opulences. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Why don't you read the commentary, Raghunath? Pull that up.
This is the commentator 40 commentary of 47. Atheistic men think that the cosmic manifestation has come about by chance, by a combination of matter. It's actually a pretty crazy theory if you think about
It's God. I mean, let's face it.
it.
It's like
Just
it requires an incredible amount of
matter
faith.
created Kostuba without any reference to God. Materialistic so-called chemists and atheistic philosophers always try to avoid even the name of God. Yeah, they hate the name of God in the relation to the cosmic manifestation. For them, God's creation is impossible to understand because they are too materialistic. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Paramahamsa, or the Supreme Pure. Whereas those who are sinful, being very much attached to material sense enjoyment, and then for engaging in material activities like asses, are the lowest among men. All their so-called scientific knowledge is null and void because of atheistic temperament. Thus, they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is, I could just take apart this one line. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Paramahamsa, or the Supreme Pure. Whereas those who are sinful, being very much attached to material sense enjoyment. Right? Here's another idea. We hear this word sinful and we think like we're doing something bad and now God's going to punish us. Whereas when we take that approach, it's relinquishing in one sense our responsibility. I use that example of if I shoot out the wheels of my car with a shotgun, it's not God's
You ever
fault.
think about doing that kind of thing?
Thinking about doing stuff like that.
Let me get my
sometimes.
car. Let me get my car now.
Where's my car? We got air in the tires. Let's blow them out right now. It's not God's fault that now I'm going really slow if I want to go to the store. I did it to myself. So our bad choices create a bad reaction. And the instructions of God, and when we hear in revealed literature, is just how to have a smoother drive in this world. And what is it? It's attachment to sense enjoyment. Like, why is that so evil? It's not that it's evil. It's not that it's evil. It just keeps you bound up by the body. It makes you think that the body is the self. It just endorses illusion, like Dr. Albert Einstein was saying. It endorses the illusion that you are a sensual being when you're actually a spiritual being. You're a carnal being, where you're actually a spiritual being. We look out to find our pleasure instead of looking in to find our pleasure. And so then we get called this is a great word that the Bhagavatam uses. You're like an ass. You become like an ass, and it's a
Stubborn.
poignant word. An ass, or like the lowest among men. An ass is a beast of burden. Does an incredible amount of work, and what do they get in return? They just get a little water, a little grass. It's like living in New York City, right? Working your butt off in New York City. What does it take to get New York City's so expensive?
Or
Anybody
even
who goes to
outside of
New York,
City.
huh?
Even people outside of New York City too.
But New York City is just so exemplified because
Okay.
because what do you get for? Because there's so much more effort. Just the commute to work is exhausting. Packed in a place.
Well, you don't have to go so far when you live in the city. It's when you live outside the city and work in the city.
It's, you know what, when I lived in Los Angeles,
Oh,
it was
that's a
so
whole nother thing.
exhausting to get to work.
That's crazy.
And then
LA
when
and traffic.
when I'd go teach yoga in upstate New York, I was like, what a beautiful drive this is. It's the same amount of driving, but it was just charming. It was a charming drive.
Oh,
So the passionate cultures like New York City or LA, it's so I'm just using that. Of course, you can be an ass anywhere in the world. You can be an ass living in the forest. But if you're in the city, it just exemplifies it because it's filled with a passion and ignorance. And you're working hard. Everything's expensive. You want to drink. You want to drink? It's a $12 drink. It's like, what? And then what happens? This is where you get to live. You get to live in this little box, and you have a window. And you know what you can see in your window? You can see a tree if you're lucky. That's it. And there's no trees on your street. It exemplifies. We work, and you get this much in return.
I was as we're reading this, what Prabhupada is speaking about here. He's saying materialistic so-called chemists, so on.
Materialist chemists. What's a chemist?
Someone that studies chemicals, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Go on.
So I was thinking, here we have Albert Einstein. Now I've noticed, like people that like have some kind of religious or spiritual faith, they always want to pull Einstein on their side.
That's what we're doing right now.
Well, I'll tell you something though. I really
Albert Einstein.
I researched this. I researched this quote and found a whole article. It was written about the exact source of where this came from, where it was quoted in different newspapers over different years.
Was he referring to Eastern philosophy? Did it say anything about that?
It did mention that, yes. Okay. And then it went and found even the handwritten note and then translated from German so that they made sure that they had the right context.
Okay.
And the right translation. And here's my point. On the other hand, you have like the empiricists, and the what we would there's some word I forget the term they use, but like for this new brand of kind of pop culture atheist scientists. They call them like there are different names for them, but like they're almost like a religious atheists or something like that. Like their atheism is like a religious fervor for them. Okay. Now, when I look at Einstein, and I haven't studied him in depth or anything, and I don't even know if I could, but when I read some of this, the impression that I get is that he was objective. He wasn't. I don't see him committed to any particular spiritual tradition, but I see him open to them and engaging with them respectfully. At least that.
You don't find that nowadays so much. You just feel like what was said about like the G word. You can't say God, or else you're sort of written off as some sentimental fool.
And here's the point. Like, let's say that I were one of these religious atheists, and I appear on television shows and I speak about people who have faith in a God, or being a creator, a maintainer, and I'm just constantly with a ton of condescension, just like mocking that faith, right? When I'm doing my research, and if there's a little thread that I could pull on, in other words, I have my theory and I find something to back up my theory, but I see a thread there. And I know, well, if I'm going to see if this holds, I need to pull on that thread, right? I need to pull on it. Even if it's a small thread, I need to pull on it and see if it still holds up. If my whole reputation, if I pull on that thread and find, oh my God, my theory didn't hold, perhaps there is, perhaps consciousness is something that's not produced out of matter. Perhaps there is a designer, I will be hesitant to sincerely pull on that thread if I presented myself, if I've mocked, because it's going to be so hard for me at that point to say, oh, I was wrong, and people that have that attitude, that super condescending attitude, they have the hardest time admitting that they're wrong, right? And
Sure.
so my point being, how does that affect my research? Can I be truly objective in my research? Can I be a true scientist in my research? If I'm not ready to overturn every stone and really examine. And so I appreciate Einstein's thing. He's not, in one sense, he's not even saying, oh, there's a God exactly, but he's saying, when I look, I see everything's tied together. Something's holding all this together, right? And then he says it in a very interesting way. Religion should be for finding that. What is it that's holding everything together? What is it that makes nothing separate? I'm seeing something's tying it all together. And I think religion should be all about finding out that. I appreciate that. I see him as objective. We may not share all the same ideas, but I see that he's engaging with this kind of thought and engaging with texts like Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita respectfully.
Sure. At least he's trying to be objective. Maybe we
Yeah.
can't be fully objective because we are limited in what we can perceive, and
Well, maybe he's
we
being, I
we
don't know,
even we even could be blindsided by our own the way we were
blinded by
brought.
science.
Could be a little blinded by science.
Blinded me with science. All right.
Squirrel Master Kastuba. My dear
text?
Lord, it is after you endeavor that Lord Brahma, Indra, and the other directors of the cosmic manifestation become occupied with their activities. It is after you perceive the material energy, my Lord, that the senses begin to perceive. The Supreme Personality of Godhead holds all the universes on his heads like seeds of mustard. If you haven't seen a mustard seed, they're very tiny little balls. I
What
offer my
text are we
respectful
on, Bubba?
obeisances. Huh?
What text is this?
48.
48.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has thousands of hoods. Sukadeva Goswami continued. The Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta Dev, being very much pleased with the prayers offered by King Chitraketu, the king of the Vidyadharas, replied to him as follows. O
Okay,
best
so
of the
now-
Kuru dynasty, Maharaj Prickett. So here's
now
the
Vishnu's
Lord
speaking
is
to
going
him.
to respond. O king, as a result of you having accepted the instructions spoken about me by the great sage Narada and sages Narada and Angira, you have become completely aware of transcendental knowledge because you are now educated in spiritual in the spiritual science. You have seen me face to face. Therefore, you are now completely perfect. Sort of like a promise, isn't it? Like, this is what's going to happen. It's good to know. This is what could happen to you.
Yeah, and he's seeing what's tying it all together now. You got it. You clicked into the spiritual science. You see it all tied together.
All living entities, moving and not moving, are my expansions and are separate from me. I am the super soul of all living beings who exist because I manifest them. Why do you exist? Because you manifest you. I am the form of the transcendental vibrations like Omkara and Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, and I am the supreme absolute truth. These two forms of mind, namely the transcendental sound and the eternally blissful spiritual form of the deity, are my eternal forms. They are not material. Okay. This
Okay.
is good. Anyone who's going to chant some japa today, when you chant japa, think of yourself like the sound vibration, when done with the appropriate intention and the appropriate attention, can be like a combination to you can't get into one of those. Remember in the banks they have like those old fashioned safes, like these gigantic safes with the the ship wheel on it, and like a
Yeah.
giant. You got to turn it to the left and through the right.
Mhm.
And then finally everything unleashes and the whole vault opens and there's the treasures. The holy name is like that treasure. First of all, the proper attention and intention of hearing that name, and you're just working this combination, and then it's going to unlock the great wealth. It just appears, right? Just like what does a safe appear like? It's just like a big wall. You don't understand. You might not understand there's anything behind it. There's something incredibly valuable behind it, but you can't get through. It's sealed off to us. But we're given here by the great saints, the acharyas, a combination lock. Now, non-spiritual scientists, right, who just have no faith in a spiritual science, they'll be like, well, I don't see anything valuable here. You can't get into this.
There's just a wall here.
You can't. There's a wall. You can't get in this wall. I've tried. I've spun the dial. I've turned the giant wheel. There's nothing. No. There's a way to do it. There's a combination lock. We've been handed, and if you think about everybody who's coming here, people are inquisitive, but they're also have a spiritual sentiment. You know, that changes because to have that spiritual sentiment, the ego fever has to lower. And when that ego fever is high, it's a block. It's a safe. It's a giant sealed, right?
You're thinking like Krishna on the eve of Gita Jayanti.
It is a Fort Knox. You're not getting in. But the combination is here.
But do you want to know how you're thinking like Krishna on the eve of Gita Jayanti?
Yeah, tell me.
Because this is really where I'm really at in what I'm writing right now, what I'm working on. Is this idea that Krishna says that he says that there's a confidential aspect to Vedanta, right? Guyam. Secret. But when he says, but he speaks about the combination to understanding it. And it's not renunciation. It's not austerity. It's not intelligence. None of these things that are commonly, brought up in the studies of the less confidential aspect of Vedanta. But he said, but it has to do with the state of one's heart, right? That you're non-envious, that you're like a devoted friend. Bhakto seme sakha cheti rahasyam yetarutamam. Rahasyam means like a mystery or something confidential. Uttama means like the most, right? The deepest mystery. Bhakto seme sakha cheti, because you're my devotee, my friend, therefore you can understand the transcendental nature of this greatest mystery, right? Then in the 9th chapter, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. This is the greatest of knowledges, right? This is the most guarded secret, right? But what does he speak about when he opens up like this and what he follows? He says, you can understand it because you're non-envious, right? He says, then what he begins to talk about is that behind all the workings of this universe, there's a director. And ultimately that director is a person. This is the confidential aspect of Vedanta, right? If you study Vedanta, all those that study Vedanta, they accept Bhagavad Gita. Sure. But when you really, but it's right there that Krishna is saying that there's a confidential, in the 15th chapter, Guyam Tatam Shastram, the most guarded secret, the highest secret of all the Shastra, of all the Vedic literature, has to do with understanding that Krishna is saying, I'm behind everything. I'm making it all move. I'm making, it's all connected to me. And so I like the way that you said that, Raghunath. You know, it's like, that safe is there. There's a combination to that safe, but that combination, it's not austerity that gives you that combination. It's not intelligence. It's not scholarship,
Sure.
right? It's not renunciation. It has to do with the state of your heart. And when your
Sure.
heart's in the right place, then you open up,
Because Krishna, the absolute truth, the origin of everything, is a being. And just like beings in this world, I'm looking at the Zoomers right now. We got Martine and Henry and Saraswati, and Manish. Suppose I want to get to know Manish. I can't just order Manish to reveal his most intimate part of himself to me. You just tell me everything about yourself right now. I want to understand you. I'm looking right at you right now. I'm going to shake you around. That's not going to do it. Because he's a being, if I approach with the appropriate attention and intention to love, he starts to reveal himself to me. She starts to reveal herself to me. And that's how love works in this world. It doesn't come
Right.
through force. It comes through a sentiment, and a sentiment tied with attention, attention to detail, focus, right?
attention.
That's a big part of love. You have attention for the person and focus
Right.
on, right? And intention. We've all maybe
Motive.
been in a relationship where the person has ill intentions, and after a while we pick up on it. Like,
Has
wait
that
a
happened
second,
to you,
just
Raghunath?
want me for my money or for my fame or you're just trying to use me for my body, whatever it is. But when we see a person, actually, this person has great intentions, and that goes through trusting us and us proving ourselves, then all of a sudden love starts to really flow out of that person. The same is with Krishna, and Krishna is always wants to, and that's why we go through these stumbling blocks, because Krishna wants us with our best intentions only. And then he'll reveal himself. And what'll happen is things will surface, and we'll start to realize, wow, I'm doing this for ego. I'm doing this to show off. I'm doing this for prestige. I'm doing this to, gain followers. I'm doing this. And Krishna will not let you close. These things will keep manifesting. You'll keep having a stumbling block. You'll blame Krishna. You'll blame a community. You'll blame the religion and church. No, it's all for our purification. And then we can come closer and closer and closer when all that stuff sheds. Because Krishna's ready to give it to us. He's ready to open up that treasure trove, that Fort Knox of love. But we've got to come correct.
Gotta come correct.
Got to come correct.
You sure Mara's coming correct? Her motive is good.
Mara's got very, very good motives.
She wants you for your wealth, maybe, Raghunath?
She's shifty.
She's like, she laughed when I said that. Oh, no, I'm not coming for the wealth.
She might come for something. She might come for
the humor.
But she's not coming for my wealth, that's for sure.
Okay. Don't need a prenup. I want to.
Prenup. Sure, I'll sign the prenup. I make more money than you.
I want to share one more thing, Raghunath. Was in this verse, the combination is being spoken of here, and two things are being mentioned. One is the mantra, the sounds, the spiritual sound, the names, the transcendental vibrations that are objects of meditation. And the other is the form of the deity, right? The Archa Vigraha.
Right.
Now, if you hear from someone like these, religious atheists, they won't try to understand it. We've spoken here about like how to have a productive argument. It means like I try to represent the side that I'm arguing against even better than they can represent themselves, right? I need to really understand them and then articulate what their position is.
Right.
Now, if one of these people hears about, say, something like deity worship, they're just going to paint it in such a way that it appears absolutely ridiculous. Oh, there's some God in the form of some, carved statue, and you're convinced that if we don't supplicate ourselves to that statue that earthquakes are going to come and floods are going to come, and
Sure.
because it's envious and jealous and angry, and that's your God, and he just wants to manipulate you. And now, that's not at all what this is about, right? The idea is, one, that consciousness that ties everything together penetrates everything, and therefore is within this form, but that the form is really about us bringing our minds to the form and transforming our minds in that way, right? Like our attention could go in so many different directions, but if I learn to bring my mind to that form, and then I perform the rituals that train my mind to think and to see in a different way on a daily basis, then I begin to see the connections in the world that Albert Einstein is talking about, where I'm prone not to see them, where I'm prone to get caught up in my own feelings of separateness and seeing everything as separate in my own exploitive nature. If I can begin to see beauty, not in a separate form that I want to exploit, but beauty in this form of God that I want to connect with, right? Then if I can see happiness, not in trying to manipulate everything external with me as the center, which I'm clearly not, but I begin to understand that I can find happiness by serving the center with a mood of love. That's what's cultivated through the ritual of worshiping the deity. Now, if you're going to go ahead and explain that first, and then explain why you don't have faith in it, then I can accept that you're an objective scientist. But if you're just going to paint it in some kind of tones that have nothing to do with what the people are actually doing, then I know that you're not sincere. You're not objective. Therefore, I appreciate Einstein.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right.
Oh, it's time.
We're out of time, huh?
You ready for some takeaways?
Ready for some music
Please.
or some songs?
Don't nurture the illusion, overcome it.
Hark to the bells ringing around, filling the air with jolly sound.
Only through truth can we find peace.
Okay.
Our prime relationship is with the Lord.
It's the prime one. We're related with everyone, but there's a prime one.
My sweet Lord.
Substantial relationships are built on spiritual truth.
Truth.
Surcharge your awareness with the energy of union.
There you go.
Chant japa with attention and intention to open the safe.
Open the combination lock
Do-
of love.
Do you like those movies where they're in there?
Approach
and they're in the
Krishna with
whole-
love to
hey,
understand him.
Wait, hold it. I'm asking Raghunath.
Stupa frozen.
Oh, we're
Oh, am I frozen?
We're
Ani?
frozen. Thought he was frozen.
Maybe it was me because I was hearing
Steve-O.
you.
Oh, can you hear us? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you?
Okay.
I was saying to Raghunath, do you like those heist films where like they're in the black outfits and then they're at the safe and then they got like the stethoscope and then they got that up to and they're turning that thing? Click, click.
Yeah, I love that.
I figure that's the kind of thing that you're into, right?
Oh
'Cause
yeah. Heisting
You're into
jewels.
treasures.
Love treasures.
I know.
Robbing banks.
Robbing banks, perhaps. With stethoscopes. Anything where I can use a stethoscope, I'm in. Especially for jewels. Combination.
Unless it
lock.
requires going to medical school.
Okay, go on.
Krishna reveals his love when we come correctly.
Come correct.
Come correct. What's that from? Some hip hop thing.
It's just come statement.
correct.
Come correct.
And
We're on and already?
yeah. And lower the ego fever to enter Fort Knox.
Ego fever. You think it's going around? Oh, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on this beautiful Thursday. It's going to be a great day today. I feel it in the blood. Sing your holiday songs and chant the holy name with attention and intention to unlock the goodies in the secret Bhakti Vault. That's our message today. That's our important message today. Good to see everybody here this early in the morning, eager for Bhakti. It's inspiring. And we'll see you tonight for Sweet Baby Krishna at 7:30 for Patreon members. Please join us. We've got some special stuff we're going to read, talk
Links will
about.
be on Patreon.
It'll be on Patreon. Yeah.
And it's the same link that we always use for Sweet Baby Krishna.
Martina's here walking on the beach chanting japa.